Our first article is from Yahoo Finance. Babies wanted. Nordic countries crying for kids. Dated January 16th, 2019. Now, this is kind of funny. So, I did that red pilling egalitarians video the other day. Apparently, people are completely unfamiliar with my work, and they said that I didn't provide enough sources to prove my assumptions. And one of the assumptions that they challenged me on, they said I needed to prove, was that the reason for the migrant crisis, like the reason why all these migrants are being led into Europe, is because of the welfare state. And I'm like, they openly admit it. There's papers from the UN. The politicians openly admit it. This isn't even in dispute. You really want me to prove something which isn't even disputed because you're ignorant of the background? Wow, what a waste of my time. But okay, fair enough. Let's prove it. All right. You think I'm pulling shit out of my ass? Here we go. Let's talk about this article. All right, I'm just going to read the first paragraph or so, which pretty much makes my case for me. All right, this is from Oslo. Shout out to Oslo MGTOW. Quote, Norway needs more children. I don't think I need to tell anyone how this is done, Norway's prime minister said cheekily after she was raising a real concern. Too few babies are being born in the Nordic region. The Nordic countries were long a bastion of strong fertility rates on an old continent that is rapidly getting older. But now they are experiencing a decline that threatens their cherished welfare model, which is funded by taxpayers. Quote, in the coming decades, we will encounter problems with this model. Prime Minister Erna Solberg warned Norwegians in her New Year's speech. Quote, there will be fewer young people to bear the increasingly heavy burden of the welfare state. So there you go. Like exactly what I said. This is not a disputed point. The reason for the migration, in fact, there are UN papers which confirm this. The entire reason why Europe has opened their doors to these migrants isn't some shadowy conspiracy to cause white genocide. It is completely due to the welfare state and the lack of fertility. And there are UN reports going back to the early 2000s talking about this. And they even said we're going to have to import Muslims because they are the only ones having children. Because if there was some country full of white people that had all the kids and they could import from that country, they would. But there isn't. Because fucking feminism has been spread all throughout the West. Everywhere. Everywhere is feminist. So thank you, feminism. That basically there's no countries left to draw from which aren't Muslim. Islam is the only place where they actually have a good fertility rate because they're not feminist. So if you wonder why all these immigrants are coming from the Middle East and Africa, that's why. They have a high fertility rate because they didn't empower their women. You did it to yourself. And the fact that people are in denial of this, they think oh no, it's not the welfare state. It's not the low fertility rate. It's the Jews or so. I don't know what the fuck I don't know what your alternative theory is, but this is the truth. It's because of the welfare state and it's because of the low fertility. That's it. They admit this. They openly admit this. This is not in dispute. So for the person who said that I was making assumptions and I didn't prove my case, there you go. This is not a disputed fact. This is why there's the fertility crisis and the welfare state equals Muslim immigration. And also, this proves that, this agenda of we gotta kick the Muslims out. We need an ethno state with just our race and just our culture. How are you gonna pay for the welfare state? You're not having kids. You need to have a growing population of workers to pay the benefit to the people on welfare. So let's say you do kick out all the brown people. Let's say you get your heart's desire and all the brown people are gone. Who's gonna pay for the welfare state? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about anything other than blaming other people for what you caused? Trying to look for some scapegoat that's not your own women to blame for your problems? Okay, someone said robots. All right, time for economics lesson time. Robots cannot pay taxes. I don't know if you knew this. Robots don't get paid. That's kind of the point of robots. So robots cannot pay into the system. And I know then the next thing you're going to say is, we're going to tax the companies that make the robots. We'll make them pay. Companies can't pay taxes either. A company is just a piece of paper in a filing cabinet. It's a tax structure. A company is made up of people. Only people can pay taxes. When you tax a company, like the corporate tax, which we have in America, by the way, I think we have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world, too. When a corporation has their taxes raised, they do three things. The shareholders lose money, which drives investment away from that country and hurts the economy. Jobs are not created, as companies don't expand and create new jobs. Workers also may be fired. And prices go up. The company is utterly incapable of paying the tax itself because it's just a piece of paper. That tax has to be paid by passing it along to people, shareholders, workers, and customers. So I want you to come on a little journey with me. Let's just go on a little economics journey. I want you to imagine a world where you have robots doing all the work, but they can't pay the taxes. So the corporations are stuck with the taxes. They have to raise prices in order to pay the taxes. So here you are, Mr. Dipshit, with your welfare and your free money and your UBI, wondering why everything's so fucking expensive. That's why you have to pay the taxes, not the robots, not the fucking companies. You, the customer, you have to pay the taxes. That's how this works. There is no free lunch. So again, I ask you, now that we've had this economics lesson, once you have your ethno-state, once you've kicked out all the brown people, and once your fertility rate is still shit, who is going to pay for the welfare state? Take all the time you need. I'll be here. You want me to give you a minute? Do we need to play some Jeopardy music? Nobody. There is nobody to pay the taxes for the welfare state. So you have two options. Raise your fucking fertility rate, or you need immigration. And again, there are no white countries to pull immigrants from, which aren't also suffering from a low fertility rate. So you're really left with one option. Take women's rights away and get your goddamn fertility rate up. That's your only option. And the best part is, you can do that today. You don't need to wait for fucking economic collapse and all this other bullshit. You just, whenever you want, whenever you're ready, you can do this today. What?
What have I told you about making sense?
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, getting rid of welfare isn't an option. Again, to get rid of welfare, you'd have to take women's rights away anyway, because women, they get 70% of the welfare. You'll never get women to go along with any sort of welfare reform. So until women don't have rights, you can't even do that. Nothing gets fixed as long as women vote. Nothing. So when you're done, if you don't like the immigration, if you don't like the grooming gangs and the violence, there's literally one way there's two ways to fix it. You can have a civil war and all kinds of basically, this ends with women losing their rights. There's only three scenarios. There's, you sit on your hands and do nothing until Islam takes over. They kill you and they take women's rights away. You rise up against your government, overthrow them, establish a Japan-like ethno-state, which slowly goes extinct over 100 years, and then someone else takes over and they take women's rights away. Or you take women's rights away. And the best part is, objectively, taking women's rights away is the most humane, least violent, best objective answer. No need for civil war, no need for race war, no need for forced removal. Nothing. You just take women's rights away, get your fertility rate back up, get rid of the welfare state, and most of the immigrants will simply leave. They're only there for the welfare. Take women's rights away, get rid of the welfare state, and the immigrants leave. Done. Simple. Peaceful. Bloodless. Good. That's all I gotta say.
Oh yeah, I mean, they pretty much explained it with the fourth and fifth line of this.
I know, again, I'm not talking out of my ass. The fact that somebody is challenging me, saying I'm making assumptions and I need to prove, that just shows you how ignorant. And this is what's, I honestly, if you're on YouTube, it's not like everyone talks about the Muslims problems and the migrants and the violence and the grooming gangs. How many YouTube videos have been done about, Islam in Europe and every day? There's all these white nationalists, alt-right groups, classical liberals. Everybody's pissed off about the migrants in Europe, right? But nobody is talking about how to fix it. Nobody's talking about the problem is you have to get rid of the welfare state. You got to get rid of women's rights. That's the problem. No one wants to talk about that.
The issue is that all of these, you see all of these so-called conservative and alt-right and all these other people. The problem is that they're egalitarian. Like, sure, they might be hyper-conservative in some ways, but at the end of the day, they believe in egalitarian principles. So a lot of them believe in this ethno-state that has like equal rights within that ethno-state. It's just like, we're gonna have, you know, let's not have black people, or let's not have Jews, or let's not have Muslims, or whatever. But they're completely fine with having women on par with men. And so if you challenge them on this, you will find that they are, at the end of the day, egalitarian. And that is why we have this issue. That is why they're not talking about this.
This is why we can't have nice things. So, again, look, I understand, like in my video yesterday about red-pilling egalitarians, I simply live in the real world. Even if egalitarianism is the right thing to do, it's the morally correct thing to do. If it doesn't work, you shouldn't do it. Just like communism, if you believe in equality, communism is the morally right thing to do, but it doesn't work. So you can just simply push for doing the right thing, regardless of whether it works or not, because it's the right thing, knowing it's going to fail, knowing millions of people are going to die, but you did the right thing, even if millions of people die. That can be the hill you die on, and you will. But
you know how Cortez
you are not the good guy.
Cortez says she's bringing humanity or morality back to politics, and that it doesn't matter if she was factually wrong because she's morally right. Well, I beg to differ. I would say that being factually right and being morally right are one and the same. You cannot be morally right and factually wrong at the same time, because as you pointed out, doing the right thing and getting millions of people killed, well, clearly that wasn't the right thing. So there's 99 ways to do something wrong and one way to do it right.
And when millions of people die, they'll simply say, oh, well, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's true. But when people are telling you, don't do this, millions of people will die. And you're like, it's the right thing to do. For who? Who is benefiting when you're murdering millions of people through shit that does not work in reality? It's like when those people were trying to build those flying suits that look like bird wings, and they were just jumping off cliffs and dying because they didn't know how aerodynamics worked. Like, that doesn't help anyone. You're just killing people. Like, I actually have people, egalitarians, who, again, are not familiar with my content, commenting on that video, saying that we need to send women into the front lines to die. And then once enough women have died, then the women will beg to go back to the kitchen. And it's like, so you're willing to take their rights away after you've killed thousands of them? Why? You've already, you know the end goal. This ends with you taking women's rights away. Why kill thousands of women just to take their rights away at the end? Just take their rights away. Why the needless death? And then someone else said, oh, we just need to force women to be equal. And if they can't make it because they're physically inferior, then, you know, let them fail. Let them keep failing until they give up or whatever. And it's like, how cruel are you? You know women can't do this. They are biologically and physically incapable of doing this. What is the point of forcing them to do something they can't do and watching them fail over and over again? Like, I'm the compassionate one. I don't want to be needlessly cruel and cause thousands of women to die to prove a point. I know how this ends. Let's just skip the needless death, the needless pain and suffering, and just do what needs to be done without anyone being hurt or killed. Why is that the extreme position? Why is it these egalitarians are arguing for murder and cruelty, and they think that that's morally justified to prove their point? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why am I the good guy? Why am I the compassion? Why is the guy talking about pimp hands and taking women's rights away? Why am I like why do I have the moral high ground in this argument?
War never changes. In the current year, women have declared war on men. Men are not only guilty until proven innocent, but they are not even allowed to prove their innocence. In response to this warfare waged by women, known as feminism, men have sought refuge with waifus. Artificial women able to satisfy a man's need for love and sex. Retailers like the dollhouse began to spread, bringing waifus to men everywhere, freeing them from the enslavement of feminism. Get your waifu today from thedollhouse.com or dc.dollhouse.com if you're in the United States, before they're banned by feminism so they can control men once more. Go to thedollhouse.com and dcdollhouse.com to find your waifu today, before it's too late.
I have an important message for you. For the guys who dream about early retirement and packing their bags for a one-way trip to Asia and say bye-bye to #MeToo, feminism, entitled women riding the cock carousel, Kirsten Gillibrand, and all other undesirable excesses of the Western cockpocalypse, I've got some good news for you. Author and MGTOW Luca Venditti has written a book about how to achieve early financial independence and leave the West. He managed to retire on $200K in Asia and is happy to share how he did it. His book will cover in detail the high yield deposit accounts available and how to capitalize on them for a guaranteed monthly passive income that grows with inflation, an extremely detailed budget breakdown, and much more. The book is called MGTOW's Guide to Retiring on $200K in Southeast Asia. And you can purchase it on mgtowbooks.com and use the promo code
GFM
for an extra 10% off. You'll find the link and code in the description.